Hello, everyone. If you're new here, welcome to the Justin Hollen podcast. And if you're returning, welcome back. Before we get started, I would just ask you guys, if you guys enjoy the video, please leave a like. And if you're enjoying what I'm doing here on this channel, and this podcast, I ask you guys, please subscribe to the channel. Now, today is going to be a little bit different of a podcast. And so I've gotten a lot of questions about kind of how to start a podcast, like what goes into it, what equipment have I bought. And so since it's been like multiple questions, I figured I might as well just make a podcast today and just a whole video on what equipment I've bought and everything like that. So first thing being the recorder, which the recorder is it's not necessarily the most important thing. So there's multiple ways you can go into recording a podcast. You can do it from your phone. You can do it from your laptop. You can do it from an actual recorder system that I have, which has about 8 plugins for mics. So I can have up to 8 guests or 7 guests if I really wanted to. And it also has a whole bunch of different inputs and outputs. So if I could plug in headphones for everyone to listen, I could also plug in like different inputs. So we could plug in like a TV or a laptop and we could hear audio. So this is a very expensive purchase. It was about $400. So if you're willing to make that big investment, that's just for the recorder alone. That's not even getting into everything else that we have to get into today. But that is the first piece of equipment that I purchased and that you're going to want to get if you're going to want to have a podcast similar to mine. I mean, you can also record from your laptop. You can also record from your phone. However, I do feel like there can be a bit of a issue when it comes to maybe recording multiple guests, or it's not going to be as good as quality of the audio and things like that sort. But still, if you're beginning, it's fine to start with something like that. Next, we're going to talk about recorder accessories, and there's 2 of them that you are going to want to get if you purchase what I have. So one of them is the Audio-Technica headphones, which aren't necessarily, which is these right here. These are the ATH20s. And so they're not necessarily anything crazy. They're about $50 on Amazon. I highly recommend them, especially if you're going to have multiple guests. It can be kind of hard to tell when you're talking over somebody. And so with these, you can hear yourself and you can also hear everyone else around you. So when you start talking, you can be like, oh, wow, I'm talking over this person. It actually sounds like shit. And actually hear what the listener is going to be listening. So it kind of deters people from cutting off each other. It doesn't work all the time, but it works a good amount of the time. It also keeps people engaged and actually listening. And then next is there's a portable plug-in that you can use if you're going to buy headphones. You don't necessarily need headphones if you're going to do a one podcast by yourself, or you're going to do something where it's like you and another guest and it's just going to be you two talking. You guys have it planned out. You're not going to necessarily need headphones. It's good to have them for like audio, making sure your audio is all good and everything like that, but you don't necessarily need them. But they're a good addition to have. I suggest them. And if you're going to do that, I would also get the stereo jacks, which my recorder does have 2 outputs. So if it's going to be 2 headphones using it, it's fine. But you're going to want to get a stereo jack that maybe can have up to 10, like 5 or 4, 10 outlets or anything like that. I have the one that has 10 outlets. So worst case scenario, like in the future, my goal is to have a person behind the cameras and then also somebody recording the audio and everything like that, and then the guests have them. So we'll have plenty of inputs for that in the future. But if you're going to be just doing 1 person or 2 person, you don't necessarily need something like that. Yeah, so that's pretty much with that. And then for mics, which is what you're looking at right here, this is the Audio-Technica AT2020. These things are a beast. These things are fantastic. They're about $99 on Amazon. I highly recommend them. I mean, if you're going to be using a recorder like how I use it, which is with these aux cables, which are these type of cables right here, which we'll talk about in a second. I can kind of see it. Yeah, we're going to talk about those in a second. So these are XLR microphones. You need a recorder to basically plug it into it. You can get an adapter, like if you buy these mics and then you want to plug it into your iPhone or your computer or something like that, you can buy adapters, but it's just better to just plug these straight into a recorder and you'll be perfectly fine. These are $99. You can get a lot cheaper ones. You can get a USB mic, which is what I used, I think, on my first ever like podcast or video that I did on YouTube. I had a USB mic, so I just plugged it into the laptop and it was perfectly fine. If you're going to be a solo podcaster, that's go for that, because they're probably cheaper and they're easier to use and you don't have to really worry about it. But also with that comes cables, which you're going to need to buy separate cables for these, which are XLR cables. Mine, I think I got them for $20-$30, which they're like 15 feet long. You can get them anywhere from probably like a foot long to about 300 to 400 feet long, because these are things they use in concerts and things of that sort. So they have pretty industrial sized cables, but 15 feet is perfect for what I'm doing here. And they're great they have a plug-in. So the thing about USB versus XLR, a USB, you just plug into it, and most of the time, unless it's like a special adapter or something like that, you can just yank it out. So like you could be mid-podcast, somebody could rip out the cord. They could be laughing, and they pull the mic, and then the mic gets yanked, and then next thing you know, that's out. But with these, you either really need to yank, and you're probably going to break it if you do that, or you have to press a button and then pull it down. So there's just an extra layer of security when it comes to you and your guests, and making sure the audio doesn't get messed with during your podcast. So highly recommend the XLR cable if you are going to use this setup. And next we can talk about hardware. I use two different things. I use Adobe Premiere Pro and I use Adobe Audition. So there's an Adobe package. I think you can get it for $30 a month or something like that. I forget, or maybe $40. I can't remember how much it is, but basically it comes with all of the systems. If you don't need that, which I use the other ones every now and then, but not for the podcast. So I have the full package of like all 50 apps, but really all you need is Adobe Audition or an Adobe Premiere Pro. If you're going to do a video podcast like this, if you're just going to do audio, all you need is Audition. You can buy that separately, like for $10 or something like that. So those are pretty well used throughout the market, and everyone, like movies use them, like movie producers use them, like a lot of YouTubers, famous YouTubers use them. So it's great. It's very easy to use. Their system is not too complicated. So if you are looking to get into something, there is other things that are free out there, like Audition. I think it's called Audition, which you can use. And then there's also, you can use iMovie if you really want to, and things of that sort, or just a regular recorder on your phone. So there's other options out there that are free, but if you're willing to start investing a little bit more and making because there's gonna be a lot more settings that you can mess with, and it's a lot easier software interface to use. So, and there's plenty of tutorials on YouTube on how to use Adobe. Everybody uses Adobe. So if you really want to make a podcast and start it off with using a good software, I recommend using Adobe Audition and then Premiere Pro. And Premiere Pro also allows you to clip it down and all this stuff. We'll get into that a little bit later. So next is also cameras. Cameras are the most expensive thing. Like, so on this whole investment, I've probably spent anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 roughly on the investment, which you don't need to do. You don't need to do that at all. I just have 3 cameras. I have multiple lights, the recorder. I'm paying for the software, which is a monthly subscription. About the headphones and the background and things of that sort. So it's been, and also the editing my computer and my desktop, which we'll get into that in a second. But that's all pretty much a pretty large investment, I would say. So if you don't want to do that, there's obviously cheaper options for everything like that, but this is just me explaining what I know and what I've purchased. And so for the cameras, I use the Sony Alpha ZV-E10, which is basically, it's supposed to be a vlog camera, but it is fantastic for podcasts. And there's one reason for that is because if you've used a camera and you've ever recorded a video on the camera, you'll notice that most cameras actually have a limit on how long you can record for. So a lot of cameras will do 10 minutes, they'll do 20 minutes, they'll do 30 minutes, maybe 60 minutes, but it's very rare for a camera to just have unlimited recording, and these cameras have that. So which is perfect for podcasts, especially if you're gonna do a podcast that's gonna be longer than 30 minutes, longer than an hour. Like I'm doing podcasts that are anywhere from 2 hours to 3 hours. So these are perfect for that. And they can just record, and you don't have to like stop the podcast, stop the flow, go press the button, and then go back to your seat. And so they're a great addition to have. And if you're willing to make the purchase, because they are $800 on Amazon or anywhere else, pretty much you're going to get them with the lens. If you already have lenses, you'll be fine. But with the lens kit, it's an $800 investment. And so if you're going to buy 2, it's going to be $1,600. So just think about it. It's pretty pretty big investment, but overall they're fantastic cameras. I use them for photography as well, which they're pretty great. However, there is one downfall, which is flash. They don't really have flash, so if you're like, I want a camera that I can use for podcast and also taking pictures and maybe pictures at night and things like that, these are not going to be the greatest because they don't have flash. But if you're purely for podcast, these will be perfect because if you're doing a podcast, you should probably be in this area where there's going to be good lighting already and you don't need to rely on a little camera flash. So it's worth the not having that. Also, a little bit about them is they record in 4K, 1080p, anything like that. So if you're going to want something, which I record in 4K, which recording in 4K helps when it comes time to convert into horizontal content and things of that nature, which we'll get into in a little bit. But these are fantastic for that. All right, so next let's get into camera accessories, which if you're going to use a camera, you're going to want, and you're probably going to need these for sure, which is the first one being a tripod. You can get tripods anywhere from $10 probably, or anywhere from $10 to $100 if you really want to splurge. I got mine on Amazon for $27. They're perfectly fine. They work great. They haven't broke on me yet, and so I think just getting a decent pair of tripods, you don't need anything insane. You don't need anything industrial, but you're going to need these. That way you can set up your camera. You don't have to worry about a cameraman holding your camera. You don't have to worry about it setting it up and like maybe falling over. These are kind of, if you're going to get a camera, you kind of have to get tripods. And with that, I also have memory cards that need to go with the camera. You can get memory cards anywhere from like a gigabyte to a terabyte. But I found that, 256 gigabytes is what I use in all of my cameras. That's good enough for me. It's like $30. And they will hold probably around 3 podcasts. Usually my podcasts are 2 hours to 2.5 hours. They can hold roughly 3 podcasts. They can roll like about 7 to 8 hours worth of 4K quality, 4K 60 frames per second. So if you're going to be recording 4K, and which is fine because I by the time I'm going to record 3 podcasts, I already have it offloaded onto my computer and things like that. But it's good to have, maybe keep them on here just in case your computer, like your hard drive crashes or something like that. You still have it as a backup. And then once you posted it, then you can delete them off the camera and just start a little rotation. That's what I do. So I just keep them on. Well, I kind of extreme example of what I do, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But 256 gig is fine. 32 gigabytes would be fine if you're going to record in 1080p for a couple podcasts. 64 will be fine if you're going to do more shorter podcasts and things of that nature. But if you really want to make the investment, get a terabyte. That's great too. I'm sure I'm going to upgrade to that eventually. But for now, 256 gigs is good enough for me. And then also with these cameras, they have battery packs, but the battery packs do not last that long, especially recording in 4K. They're going to die in 15 minutes. They don't last that long. So what you need is these plugs, which I think I have one. Yeah, look, which is this sort of thing. And so basically you plug this into the camera. So this is what a battery looks like that goes in a regular camera. But with these cameras, you can plug this in and then plug this into the wall, and it'll basically be like an infinity battery pack. So you're just basically plugging it into the wall. They're not expensive. They're $20 something on Amazon. I'll put everything in the link in the description, by the way, because I'm finding all this is going to be difficult. But these are great, especially for the Sony A7s. They work on a lot of Sony cameras, but for these, they work specifically. I know that they work, so I can recommend these. If you don't want to make this purchase, you can also use USB Type-C and plug it in because there's a plug for that. However, I've never done that. I just figured I'd buy these because I wasn't too sure how everything worked like that. But I was told by one of my friends who does streaming with these cameras that you can just plug in USB-C and it'll work just the same. But yeah, I like the plugins. I think they're great. The battery packs, I think they're not too expensive, and you can buy multiple, and you can have backups just in case something goes wrong and things of that nature. But I highly recommend it, and you will need these if you're going to be doing anything longer than 15-20 minutes on the camera. So next, getting into the next accessory you're going to want is soft lights. So soft lights, I have 2 of them. I have one here and I have one over there. They are perfect for just getting the room and getting the color and the lighting that you want, because you can have a podcast. You're going to be doing it, I guess, outside, which I wouldn't recommend because of the wind. But if you're going to be doing a podcast near a whole bunch of windows and things of that nature where you have lots of natural light, that's great. I don't. I have 2 small windows in here, and they're covered by curtains. So I have to use these light boxes, which aren't too expensive. They're about $80-$90 on Amazon. You can get different ones. You can also get bigger ones that go like completely over the ceiling and things of that nature, and get multiple, just different angles, things like that. I just think 2 for me works for now. There I can have 2 on me and one of my guests that's in beside me, and then one on the other guests that are across from us. And they're pretty good. Also, the lighting will reflect and it bounces off the walls and things of that nature, so it'll get the shadows and things of that nature. You can see I have a little bit of a shadow here because there's nothing over here, but it's bouncing off the wall and it's reflecting over. So they're very good and they're very strong. So you're definitely going to want to have something like that. And then also some other equipment which are getting into, not necessarily you need them, but if you want them, is background items. So a lot of my podcasts, you'll see I have a light that's right here just to add a secondary lighting source. I've seen some YouTube videos where people are like, you should always have like a backup little lighting. That way it adds dimension to your videos. So I added this light, I added this bar cart back here, and then also added this greenery that you can see right here. So there's a good couple of things that add to the dimensions of everything like that. And then also on my other side, I have a plant and a lighting that I use for my side on the host. But you don't necessarily need these items. You can get them from at home, like stuff like this. Get at home, IKEA. Those are my top recommended places to go if you're going to get some cheap background decor, things of that nature. I need to get like posters or something like that, but like I kind of have, you can kind of see it. I have like a panel right here that I've never finished and putting on the rest of the walls, but they're good enough for me. This is all good for now. I'll slowly start to upgrade and integrate more things into it. But if you want to add more depth to it, you can add a background. There's podcasts out there like Dropouts or like the Joe Rogan Experience, like those podcasts where they have like huge, crazy, insane backgrounds, things of that nature. Or you can go more minimalistic, like Modern Wisdom, where it's literally just like he sits in a warehouse, it looks like, or they'll just be changing the scenery in the background. So next after that, you're also going to want a laptop. And depending on if you're going to want to edit on this laptop or not, you're going to also want maybe a desktop, which I'll talk about what I use. So a laptop, if you're going to be just purely recording and editing on this, like if you need to do everything on this laptop, highly recommend a MacBook Pro. My MacBook Air is not very great at editing 4K. It cannot handle 4K at all. So don't even try. I mean, it's good with 1080p, things of that nature, but 4K, You're gonna want some type of MacBook Pro. Maybe you can get an Asus, something. Do your research on laptops. I don't really know laptops like that. I just know you're gonna probably want to get, if you're gonna do 4K, you're probably gonna want 16 to 32 grams of RAM minimum. I think I have 32 grams of RAM, not on this, but on my other computer. And this has like 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is not good at all for 4K. But if you're gonna be doing audio only, this works fine. A regular MacBook Air, some other cheaper computer works perfectly fine. And then if you're going to use a more efficient software, or like not software, but you want to use After Effects and things of that nature, like add graphics, it's going to take more time, more emphasis, and you're going to need more out of your laptop than just 16 or 32. Just be aware of that. So what I use is the MacBook Pro Studio. It's a powerhouse. It's like $1,800 though, so it is a big investment, but it handles all of my videos. It handles everything. I can edit multiple different projects at the same time. It's a fantastic purchase. Highly recommend it if you're going to be recording in 4K, recording and editing in 4K, because it can handle that 100%. Most laptops, I don't really know. I don't know if necessarily they can, but that's an extra purchase. And then also with that, I bought a monitor. So if you are going to get something like that, you're also going to have to think about getting a monitor to go with it, because it doesn't have a monitor. It's not a laptop. It's a PC. Or it's not PC. It's a desktop. On to the second part of a podcast that you should know about, which is editing. So editing, there's a couple different things. You don't necessarily need to know too much about editing, especially if your podcast is going to be straightforward. and it's going to be start to finish, and there's not going to be a lot of cutting in between and things of that nature. And if it's just going to be audio, it's going to be even easier because you could just literally record it and then you could post it. You could record it, maybe change the audio levels a little bit and then post it. That's all you really have to do. But if you're into video, and like I have multiple cameras. So I have multiple cameras set up. And so with that, I use this AI system called Autopod. And so Autopod basically does is it takes this microphone and it says, hey, whenever this microphone has some audio level, turn this camera on. Okay. And then from there, if the other mics have some audio, then it says, hey, go to that camera. And so it's basically you have the full camera, the whole video footage in the camera, and then you post it and then you sync it up to the audio. And so once it's synced up, then you go in there and you say, hey, guest 1 was talking to camera 1, guest 2 was talking to camera 2, and things of that nature. And then it basically runs an AI system, takes like 10 minutes, and it just cuts up everything, and it makes it perfectly seamless. And it makes it look like it's cutting back and forth. And it's a fantastic, the best purchase I've ever bought for this podcast, for sure, 100%. It saves hours. It saves 10 to 15 hours probably a week for posting, and it allows me to post a lot more frequently. It gives the podcast a more authentic and more professional feel when you see the cameras cutting back and forth. And so, because that's what a lot of the big podcasters are doing. They're not just having one camera set up and it's just sitting there the entire time. They're cutting back and forth. They're having multiple angles and things of that, which is one thing that I do. And I will set up 2 cameras. I have a third one now, so I'll be starting to use a third one. But I'll have 4 guests, right? And I'll have those 3 cameras, and I'll have one covering all 4 of us, and then I'll have one covering 2 guests, and then one covering me and another guest. And so what I'll do is I'll have those will be already 3 camera angles. And so from there, I can also copy that video footage, paste it on top of it, and then zoom in onto each person. So like, let's say it'll be me, and it'll be one video footage, but it'll be of me and another person. Then I can copy it twice, paste it on top of those layers, and then zoom in for one layer. It can be zoomed into me, and then one layer can be zoomed into my guest, and the third layer will be both of us. So essentially I've gone from I'm using one camera with one angle, and now I have one camera with 3 angles. And then I do the other side, and that's 6 angles, plus the wide shot, which is 7 angles. So now I have 7 shots that I've created from 3 cameras, which really adds to the dynamic of a podcast and really keeps listeners and viewers engaged, especially because I don't know if you know this, but like if you watch something and it's been the same shot for a long time, your brain starts to get bored. You start to get tired of it and things of that. So you need something constantly changing up, and it just adds to the flow of the podcast. When one person's talking, it changes to another person. So I think Autopod, 100%, if you're going to be using Adobe Premiere Pro and you're going to be recording with video footage, you need to use that. It saves so much time. You can also use it for vertical clips, which we'll talk about later, but it's just a fantastic purchase. And one tip about syncing your video and your audio. So when you sync your video and your audio, I don't know if most of you probably have seen this, but when you watch a movie, you'll see that they, at the beginning of the movie, they'll be like, take one. And they'll you'll see the behind the scenes where they'll go like, and it'll be like a little board thing, and they go like snap. So what that is doing is essentially when you record, how I record, the audio is separate from the video, but the video also has audio. So when you snap, it makes a loud spike wave in the audios for both the camera and the recorder. And so when you go to edit and post, you zoom in all the way down to like milliseconds, and you'll see this huge spike, and you line up the spikes. And then basically once you've lined up the spikes, then the audio and the video will be perfectly fine. Like they'll be perfect and you can't even hear it. And then you can delete the video audio, because the video audio is going to suck compared to these mics. And so once you do that, I've noticed, at least if you're going to do the same setup as mine, every 30 minutes to about an hour, the audio lags off of the video by like a millisecond to 2 milliseconds, which is really unnoticeable to the eye. But once it's done for 30 minutes and then an hour and then an hour and a half and then 2 hours, then you start to notice it. But so what I do is I just go in every 30 minutes, I make a small little cut, in the audio, slide it over 1 millisecond, and then boom, it's fine. And then do the same thing. So it's just a little extra thing. If you really don't need to do that if you're going to be doing like an hour-long podcast, or maybe even 2 hours, because sometimes you won't even be able, like, it'll be off and you'll kind of be able to tell if you're really paying attention, but most of the time you won't be able to tell that there's like a tiny lag between the video and the audio. So that's just a word of advice on what could happen if you use the software that I use and everything of that. But besides that, it works perfectly fine. Next, we are going to talk about social media sites. So with having a podcast, it's kind of difficult to just grow a podcast by just posting a podcast and that's it. Like you're probably going to get viewers at some point, especially if you niche down. But with my podcast, it's just interviewing guests, interviewing people I want to talk to, just having fun with friends, a lot of that. So it's not a very unique niche. Like if maybe you're talking about murder mystery and things of that, you can just post a podcast and you'll be fine, because people are looking for murder mystery, and as long as you're good at storytelling and all of that, you'll probably get some followers and some engagement. But I think the best way to grow a podcast and as fast as possible, if you're really trying to do something with this podcast, is to post clips in the form of vertical content, YouTube clips, anything of that. So what I do is I post vertical content on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts. And so what that does is, when I go and I have an hour long of video footage for a podcast, I can maybe cut that up into 30 different pieces, 30 different clips, and boom, now I have basically content that I can post on my Instagram, on my YouTube, on my TikTok for like a month straight. And so it allows me to start getting onto the For You page, start getting on the Explore pages, things of that nature. And so it starts to open up your audience and gets you really a lot of attention, a lot faster than what you would just get from a regular podcast. And the great thing about it is you only need to make one piece of clip. So what you can do is you can make one vertical piece of content for a 30-second clip, one vertical piece of content, boom, you have that. Now you can post that on TikTok, you can post that on YouTube, you can post that on Instagram, especially if you were edited it in a different software than on TikTok or on the actual apps. Once you've edited it there, you won't get any. If you edit on those apps, you'll start getting those watermarks. You don't want that. You don't want to repost that you don't want to have a TikTok watermark on your YouTube Shorts. So once you have a clip and you've edited it, you can post it on all three. So basically you get 3 pieces of output for 1 input. And it's a fantastic move, because you're going to start noticing that. And I recommend posting on all 3 if you can, because you'll start picking up different audiences in different platforms. So like on my YouTube Shorts, it's kind of all over the place. My YouTube Shorts is more international, I've noticed. Like I've gotten viewers and subscribers from India, Indonesia, Mexico, Brazil, England, Germany, United States, Australia, and so Japan, I think. So it's like all around YouTube it seems to be more international. And because their algorithm, the way it's set up, I think they have it where it spreads out more international. However, when it comes to Instagram is great because my friends are a lot of my friends are on Instagram, and so a lot of the posts that follow me, and so things like that. So my social media is growing more. I would say more about people that know me or know of me and things like that, or know of other people. And so Instagram, I'm seeing a different growth, where YouTube, it's international. Instagram is more people maybe in the Charlotte area, or it's like people that know other people that know the guests. And so it seems like it's a more closer connection also. But then on TikTok, my TikTok is like, it's interesting because it's a lot of like Georgia, it's a lot of North Carolina. Like if I post a clip about Charlotte, if I post a clip about some city in North Carolina or South Carolina, Georgia, or anything like that, those do a lot better on TikTok, which shows me that I have a bigger audience of, I guess, the southeast area of the United States on my TikTok, versus my Instagram is like a lot of friends, it's a lot of recommendations from people, and then YouTube is just kind of international. So you can build a wider range of audience range through having multiple different social media platforms. And then also you have a higher chance of blowing up, having videos blow up. Like on YouTube, my highest YouTube short is probably like 15 to 16,000 views, I think. And so that's pretty good. And so, I mean, it got a lot of followers, a lot of subscribers and things of that nature. And it's great because when you post, you can link the podcast right below the clip. And then once they're like, oh, if they think this is good, they can click on the podcast and go straight to the podcast. There's no like ways around it. TikTok, on Instagram, you have to go to your profile, maybe go to your bio, go to your highlights, something like that, then click. So it's like multiple clicks, versus YouTube is just literally just one click from YouTube Shorts. So that's why you need to post on YouTube Shorts. You're going to see the most growth there. But TikTok arguably has the best algorithm. TikTok will, once it gets flowing, once people are liking it, reposting it, favoriting it, things of that nature, it starts to flow. And then Instagram has seen my most growth when it comes to posting getting actual views. And it's interesting because like obviously the different audiences and things of that nature. But what I have noticed is on TikTok, you are going to get a lot more likes because people are more giving with their likes on TikTok. And then you're going to get a lot more views probably on Instagram, but maybe less likes. You're going to have a lower engagement ratio of like likes versus views. So I've noticed that. So just don't let, and that's also good because like you don't want to let that discourage you from posting clips, because you're like, oh my God, I posted this video and it only got 100 views on YouTube Shorts, but then you post it on TikTok, it got 1,000 views, and you post on Instagram, it got 10,000 views. So it's just kind of crazy how the algorithm works. If for the same video, the 3 different platforms will have different ways to post that video, and different people that enjoy it and things of that nature. So it really starts to show you which videos do well, which videos don't. And then if you get into the long term, which what I plan on doing is you can start making content, you can start creating clips towards those audiences that you've developed, because like on Instagram, it's more controversial topics. Anything that's like cancelable will start doing a lot better than anything on YouTube, because YouTube has a lot of restrictions. And so YouTube will be a lot of things that I think are more broad, and maybe more people around the world will understand the things of that. And then TikTok will just blow something up because it's funny. If it's funny, will blow it up. So you'll just start to notice there's different ways and you'll start to notice how your audience reacts to different clips and things of that. So just keep that in mind when you are posting on those 3 sites. And lastly, if you're going to have a video podcast, I highly recommend doing YouTube clips. YouTube clips are probably going to be the fastest way you can get to your subscriber account and to your viewer hours that you need to get to start doing AdSense, which I don't have enough right now to get AdSense. So if you're thinking of making money from this, I am not. This is 100% just a hobby for now, but it's a fun hobby, a fun passion of mine. But I don't get to write this. I don't get to claim this as all my income yet. And finally, we could talk about topics and what you should do with a podcast. So a lot of people, when you go on social media, you look for advice, they say you should niche down. Niche. That depends on what your goal is and what you're trying to do. My worry is if you niche down into a certain topic, like let's say you choose to do finance podcast, or you choose to do a coffee podcast, or you choose to do a podcast about something that there's a lot of information out there for it, but you will eventually run out of content, right? Like that's not the truth for every podcast. Like if you do murder mystery, people are getting murdered every day. That sounds bad. That sounds horrible. I mean, it's true. People are getting murdered every day, and sometimes they're a mystery. But so those are going to do a lot. You're going to be able to stay in that niche for a long time. If you go into finance, you can see this with finance YouTubers. They start running out of topics. After a couple of years, they posted so many videos, so many topics, everything like that. They start running out of topics. They start repeating themselves. And you can do that if you want to, but I'm worried about that. So what I've chose to do is just kind of no niche. I'm just interviewing people. I'm just talking to people. And I'm just doing anything that interests me. I can go anywhere from having a podcast talking about immigration rights, to having a podcast talking to a vineyard owner, to having a podcast talking to real estate agents, to talking to my friends, to talking about dating, to talking about banking, to anything of that nature, computer science, news anchors, just people I find interesting. And so that's what the form and the way I've gone about going about this podcast. And it's just what I enjoy doing. Those are the type of podcasts I listen to. I listen to like Lex Friedman, Modern Wisdom, Joe Rogan, Call Her Daddy. What else? And like Dropouts and things of that. Flagrant 2, Bad Friends. And so all of these podcasts kind of like influenced me and kind of like led me to where like I'm trying to create this podcast. And so when it comes to your topic, you can either choose something niche down, which you might grow faster if you do niche down, which is great because people are going to know what you're going to be posting every week. It's going to be the same topic, same topic, same topic. But I feel like I would get bored with that, and you may get bored with that. So if you don't want to niche down, you don't have to. You don't necessarily need to. Just know it may take longer to grow. It may take longer to build an audience of that nature, but at the end of the day, that audience that you build versus the niche audience will probably be more loyal to you. You'll have a better brand image because they know you. They don't know your topic. Maybe they're just there for your topic, but for a podcast where you don't have a niche, it's just a personality. It's just you talking to people, you talking to the camera and things of that nature. People are going to come into the podcast for you. So yeah, I think that covers pretty much everything that I would want to know first starting a podcast. Like if I was the one that had never did a podcast or never anything of that nature. So people have asked me all the time, like, what did you buy? What did you do this? Da, da, da. So I felt like I just needed to make a video. That way I could just be like, hey, if you want to know what equipment I bought, here, send this video. I'm not going to, like, it's just a very smart way. And also I'll put everything in the link down in the bio. Hopefully it'll be to my Amazon storefront. I think I got denied because I didn't make any purchases, but I'm going to try it anyways. Okay. We're going to try, and we're going to see. If you see an Amazon link and it looks like a storefront, buy it, okay? I want everybody to start doing, not everybody start doing podcasts because then y'all might be more interested in me. But if you want to start posting on social media, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Spotify, anything of that nature, highly recommend it. If you have any other questions, if you ever want to talk, message me on Instagram, email me, or leave a comment down below and I'll respond. So yeah, if you're still here and you're watching this, you either really want to start a podcast, or you love me and I love you too, or you're asleep and you left this running. All three ways, I love you. So as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.